Okay, folks, I'm going to get started. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please grab a seat if you haven't had a seat already. Okay, so I am Mr. Blay, and this is my guide to a successful FRC season. I am with 694. I'm the lead mentor for 694. I've been with 694 for 17 years, which is longer than some of you have been alive. Here's my FRC resume, and that's me being a psycho, behind the glass. So I was a student on Team 694 since my freshman year of high school, and I kind of never left. I drove the robot in 2009. I was the head of strategy, like Katie is in the back. I was the second ever 694 director of strategy. I've been the lead strategy member for the team since 2010. In that time, we've won 6 regional championships. We have never missed a regional elimination tournament. We've won 5 straight. We've been in the finals at New York City for 5 straight years, 6 in the last 7. We've been in the championship 4 times. We've been alliance captains or first picks, and we won championship division in 2016 as the number 8 alliance, which was kind of the craziest, funnest day ever. It was amazing. I've been the drive coach for the team since 2011. I've been the lead mentor for the team since 2014. And I've been the head coach and teacher of the team since 2018 when I got a job here at Stuyvesant High School to be a robotics teacher. So before I get started on anything, there's this quote up here. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. So if you can't tell, I'm very enthusiastic about this stuff. And for those of you who have ever seen me at a competition, you know I'm crazy about this stuff. I love this stuff. Last night, before I went to bed, I was watching an old 694 match on the Blue Alliance. Not for any reason other than it kind of just bounced into my head and I wanted to watch it. And a lot of you in this room are enthusiastic about this stuff. That's why you're here on a Saturday. You braved the cold weather to schlep over here to Stuyvesant High School to hear these presentations because you want your team to be successful. You want to be successful. And you know what? All the best teams in the world, they're enthusiastic. You talk to their kids, you talk to their mentors, they're crazy about this stuff. And you have to be a little bit crazy about this stuff to be successful in FIRST because the people you're competing against are that enthusiastic. This is fun. I love it. I hope you guys love it too. You have to be a little bit crazy. You have to put this in front of other things to be really successful. Now, this presentation that I'm giving right now is based off of a presentation by this guy, Karthik. I'll try to pronounce his last name, Kanagasabathy. I think I was pretty close there. I highly encourage everyone to find this video and watch it. These slides will be posted so you can see the link there. He does a presentation at the championship every year. I was lucky enough to get to attend it back in 2014. We didn't qualify for champs that year, and I went to the presentation, and it changed the way that I look, and I looked at FRC. Since that time, we have not missed the finals at New York City. I went to all the members of the team, you've got to watch this video. This is amazing, the way this guy thinks about FIRST, the way he thinks about how to run a team, how to strategize at competitions. And it was a game changer for us. Hopefully this will be helpful for you guys, this presentation. I encourage all of you to watch this if you haven't already, especially if you're on 694. I'm going to be pestering you guys to watch it, and definitely if you're on strategy. Okay. So, overview of what we'll be talking about today. We're going to be talking about goal setting goals for your team for your season, and setting goals for yourself. Preseason, how to prepare for the season that's about to start. We're going to talk about game analysis, how we look at a game at kickoff, how you decide what your robot's going to look like. We're going to talk about build season, give you some of my tips that I've kind of amassed through my years of being on the team. And talk about competition season, same thing, giving some of my tips. Now, I encourage all of you guys to participate here. So if you have a question as I'm going, please stop me. Raise a hand. I'm going to go on tangents, okay? I encourage you to take me on those tangents. So if you have a question about something I put up here, or you have a question that is about your team or your experience, and you're wondering how you should approach things, please raise your hand and we'll have a conversation about it. Okay, let's start with goal setting. So the people who get things done, who lead, who grow, and make an impact, those people have goals. You need to set goals for your season and for yourself. Do this before the kickoff. What do you want your team to reach? You know, do you want to win regionals? Do you want to win chairmans? Do you want to win certain awards? Do you want to qualify for, do you want to qualify for champs? Do you want to just play in the limbs at regionals? Every team is going to have different goals, and every individual is going to have different goals. So the goals for your team: competition success, right? That's one. Award success. And then another factor is engineering and software achievements. And this is, I think, where a lot of students on our team really go in different directions. Some students, it's like win, 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 win. This is a competition. I love it. I'm just like whatever it takes to win. Some students, they come to the team and they want to build cool things and they want to try cool things. And then a lot of the students are somewhere in the middle, and there's a mix. And it's going to be different for every team. It's going to be different for every team. We focus a lot on this team about award success, but we also want to build cool things. And we sometimes run into a problem where a student wants to build something that's really cool, but it's not going to help us that much at competition. So then we go back to our goals. What are our goals as a team? What are your goals as an individual? And we kind of make decisions based on those goals. So I encourage you to do this before the season. But for me, I don't think of FIRST Robotics as a science fair. I think it's a sport. You know, we build robots to compete against other robots, and that's the part that always spoke to me. I love the competition aspect of it. But that's not everyone. You have to decide what your team is going to look like, what goals your team is going to have. What do you want to learn? What do you want to get out of your time at FIRST? Who here is a student on the team? Who here is a student? So most of you guys are students. I encourage you before this season starts, ask yourself that question. What do you want to get out of this year? What do you want to get out of your remaining time on a FIRST team? You can come back later, but this is going to be your only time as a student. What is it that you want to get out of it? And then set your sights on those goals throughout the season. On this team, for me, I like to say, we want to be the best in the world. And that means something different to different people. Every year, we go into a classroom, and I write on the board, what do we need to do to be the best in the world? And then everyone just comes up, and they write down different thoughts. And a lot of them are jokes, and a lot of them are memes. And some of them are not. You can see some of them up there. Let's see, we got some, become the cheesy poofs. That would help. Bumpers. I love that one. I don't know who wrote that, but that's someone after my own heart. It might have just been me. Get more monies, right? So what that means, then we have a discussion as a team. And we talk about what do we need to do to get there. And this means different things for different people. You know, for me, I want to go to regionals. I want to win them. I want to seed first. I want to go to championship. I want to be on those other top alliances, compete for a world championship. But I also want to do it what, in my opinion, is the right way, right? I want teams that play with us to have fun. I want teams to look forward to playing with us. And I want the teams that we play against to look forward to playing against us because they're going to be respectful of us. If win or lose, they're going to be kind about it and they're going to try to help us out because that's really the model of FIRST. And I have this story that always comes to my mind that I don't share very often. But back in, I won't say the year, but it was, because I want to reveal the team, but it was almost a decade ago. We were at a regional, and we were doing well. We were going to seed probably somewhere in the top 3. And team approached me, and they said, we have this mechanism in our back pocket that could win the regional, we think. And, you know, I looked at it, and they did. It was good. And they offered to throw their remaining matches so that we could pick them in the back end. And I didn't bring this to the students. I just said, absolutely not. Because that's not how we want to win. And then in the regionals, we met them, and they beat us. And that was kind of the end of our season. But I had no regrets about that. When I shared it with the students, they had no regrets about it either. Because that's not how we would want to win. Right? So you have to kind of draw those lines for yourselves, how you want to go about these competitions, what your goals are, and how you want to go about achieving them. But I think, you know, FIRST teaches about gracious professionalism, how to work with our fellow teams, how to be respectful of other teams even though you're competing against them. And I personally really believe in these ideas, and it kind of drives how we aim at our goals. Okay? All right. Preseason. So that's right now, right? Kickoff is in a little more than a month and 4 days. And there's this quote I always think about, which is from Ben Franklin, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Right now is when you put in place all the things that are going to help you be successful in your season. So take care. I encourage you guys, take care of everything you can take care of. Your season has really already started. Decide who your award nominees are going to be. Decide who your team captains are going to be. Decide who your drivers are going to be. Don't do this stuff in the middle of the season because it's going to get in the way of other things, and you're not going to make these decisions clearly. Write a first draft of your award submissions. Cost $6.94. Write your first draft of your award submissions. Prepare materials. Buy wheels. Buy stock metal. Buy motors. Buy whatever you need for the season. Don't buy this during the season. Don't get held up during prototyping because you don't have the stuff that you need. Get it now. Now's the time. Now's your opportunity for it. Train your new and old members. It's a little late for this, but go to off-season events. I was really happy to see 806 who was in the house. They were at 2 of our off-season events this year. You guys often go to these. They're so helpful for training students. And I am really crazy about this. I try to go to way too many off-season events, like 7, and then Naveed yells at me, "You're killing the kids. They can't take this." It's fine. It's fine. Let's go to California. Let's go to an off-season event there. And then he's like, "Okay, let's go." Okay. Yeah, it's actually just about Naveed. That's why. But yeah, I think they're great. I think they're a great opportunity to involve younger members. The stakes are lower. If you don't do well at an off-season event, you don't stop yourself from qualifying for anything, right? For the students, it's lower pressure, and they can learn the skills that they need for the competition. So, if you're a student, get on your mentor's case about going to off-season events. If you're a mentor, go to off-season events. They're great. And then identify your team limits, especially in this year. A lot of us haven't been in a shop building a robot for almost 2 years now. Be realistic about what your team can and can't do. Don't say, okay, we're going to build the best robot that ever was. It's going to do everything, and it's going to do it faster than anyone ever. That's not realistic for, I think, any team. We're going to see a lot of elite teams this year make simpler robots than usual because they don't have the experience they once did. And I think that, applies to our team. We're going to go probably a lot simpler than we usually do because we don't have as much experience. Right? So identify what your limits are, what you are and aren't capable of, but also remember that you don't want to overdo that. You don't want to say we can't do anything but build a drivetrain, so let's build a drivetrain and that's it. Right? Push those limits a little bit, but be realistic about them. And then make a schedule for your season. Where you want to be at certain points of the season. The FRC season at this point is about 7 weeks. It depends when your first regional is. Our first regional this year will be week 2, so we have a little bit more time. I like to think of it as a 7 weeks season, and then during the week 6, week 7, we have the winter break, so we have a little bit more time to work on stuff. This is the basic schedule that we usually follow on 694. The first 2 weeks, we prototype and design. The third week, we design and begin manufacturing. We lie to ourselves and say we're going to be done with the design week 2, and we never are. We're done with it really week 3. And then 4 to 5, you build. If you design well, you can do this even faster. You can do it in 1 week oftentimes. And I know that sounds crazy. I know for a lot of us it's like, wait, we build a robot for 6 weeks. We start day 1 and then we build till the end. But if you do a really good job designing, you can build really fast. And then week 6 and 7, you want to program, you want to have driver practice, and you want to iterate. You want to improve your mechanisms. The earlier you can get this last one, I highlighted it for a reason. The earlier you can get this last one, the more successful your season. It just always ends up that way. Like if you can get the robot moving, like not finished because robots are never finished, but the earlier you can get your robot moving, get into your whatever your practice field is, even if it's just like a carpet and a goal, the earlier you can get to that, the more successful you are going to be because the robot's not going to work at first. The robot's mechanisms are going to be wrong at first. It's impossible to get it perfect right away. Even though 1678 likes to say everything's first time, they're lying to you. It takes them 30, 40, 50 times. They build 3 robots so they can keep testing. Stuff doesn't work right away. It takes time. You need to test. You need to program. You need to iterate. Leave yourself this time if you want to be successful. Okay. So we go from preseason to kickoff. Okay, kickoff is one of my favorite days of the year. 1, we get everyone back together. I see some alumni. It's super fun. 2, we get to peel through the manual and learn about the game and try to figure out all the ways to play it. My mind just is going a mile a minute. I'm on Chief Delphi looking stuff up. I'm on YouTube watching Robot in 3 Days, seeing what they're up to. I'm stalking other teams' websites to see what they're thinking. I'm looking at Instagram because at this point I basically just have Instagram to follow FRC teams. You know, that's for me all it's for. Some tips for kickoff. Well, first this quote from Einstein. You have to learn the rules of the game and then you have to play it better than anyone else. Who here is a design person? Cad's things, Cad's robots and stuff. All right, we have a few over here. We have Sean and Edwin over here. We got another person over here. Don't design the robot day one. Don't try to. It's not the time for it. I know you want to start designing mechanisms right away. I do the same thing. I see a game, I'm like, oh, that game piece. I could, if I just do a little roller or like a thing, I could pick that up this way and this way and this way. I don't even know yet if there's any point in picking that thing up. But it's big and there's lots of them on the field, so I'm thinking to myself, I gotta pick them up. No, you wanna understand if it's worth picking it up first. So the first thing you need to do is you need to read the rules. And I know you're thinking, okay, this old guy who's been doing FRC, like, he's an artifact at this point, it's like, yeah, read the rules. I'm gonna read rules. Next thing I know, I'm gonna read the rubric and do my English reading. No way. Read the rules. Read the rules. You need to understand the rules at a high level. There's a lot in there that isn't obvious from the game animation. A lot. You watch that game animation, you feel like you understand the game. It's not enough. It's not even close to enough. The best teams are spending days reading through the rules, keeping up with the Q&A, making sure that they understand the game at a high level. And they're constantly learning more. You know, we spend tons of time reading the rules, and we'll go to the first competition and realize, oh, wait, I read that rule totally wrong. In 2019, I remember, we thought that you could extend to the other side of the field, be at a frame perimeter, and be fine. But the truth of that rule was, it was as long as there wasn't a teammate on the other side. We made our whole robot too long because we misread that rule. And we read the rules like maniacs, and we made that mistake. Read the rules like maniacs, it'll help a lot. Second thing, understand the ranking system. This changes from year to year. In the last few years, there's been a system with 4 ranking points. 2 ranking points for winning, and then a ranking point for a task. It'll be a team task or an individual task. Then another ranking point for another task. It's a team task or an individual task. And at the end of the competition, whoever has the most ranking points, he's first. And they do that silly thing where they average them out on the leaderboard, which drives me nuts, because then I'm doing backwards math at the end of the competition to figure out who's going to seed where, and it just breaks my brain. But it's important to understand this. In the past, there have been other systems. For a period, it was just wins and losses. Who had the most wins, they seeded first. There was a time before that, it was a crazy era, where if you won a match, it didn't matter. It was your score, the way you ranked, it was like twice or 3 times the losing team's score if you won, and 1 time the losing team's score if you lost. So if you beat a team, 100-0, you might as well have lost. You got no points for that. So the best teams, what they would do, what do you think they did? Anyone know? What do you think they would do? Any ideas in that system? Yes? Not only let the other team score, what else do you think they would do? Yeah. They would score on themselves, they would score for the other team, and people would go to these competitions and be like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? And we, back then, did not read the rules thoroughly, and we did not understand it, and we didn't want to risk losing matches, so we would never score on ourselves, and we ranked low because of it. It was one of the things that limited our team from taking off was that lack of understanding for the rules. But if we had just taken the time back then to read the rules more thoroughly, we would have been like, oh, we got to score on ourselves. Okay. And then the other thing that you want to pay attention to with the ranking system is tiebreakers. What is the tiebreaker? Because a lot of the games, the ranking points can be really close. And then the tiebreaker, last year I think it was auto points, is what separates the teams. So then you want to prioritize those things because you want to, get the tiebreaker. And I think back to 2018, the tiebreaker was climb points. So when teams got to the Einstein round robin and they were playing, the thing that ultimately ended up deciding who got into the Einstein finals and who didn't was how many climb points everyone had, which was so stupid, and I hated it. But That's what it was. And the team who failed to climb, like I think it was 2056, one of their partners fell off their bar at the end of the match, and they didn't get that climb. And they just like that was the difference between them winning a world championship and not. And they looked at that rule and they knew that, and that's why they were going for that double climb. Yeah?
So going back to the ranking points system, how long did it take for them to realize that that was like a not smart thing to do to have it based on your own like losing team?
I think like 15 years. But the game design committee has gotten much better in the last few years about stuff like that, and also eliminating like broken game strategies where like a team can just win a match by just doing one task. Or like there was this team back in the day, Team 71 in 2002. They would just grab all the goals were mobile, and they built a robot that just grabbed all of the goals and brought them slowly to the other side of the field, and they just never lost the match because of it. So that was fun and really boring to watch. Okay. Other thing you want to pay attention to the rules, this is really critical, is when does scoring take place? This is often vague and needs to be clarified in the Q&A. So the two places this is super important is autonomous. Does anyone know in the 2020 game when balls would stop being counted as autonomous balls when you scored them? Anyone know that? Maybe you must know. Oh, Katie. 5 seconds after autonomous ended. So, if you had balls in your robot at the end of autonomous, and you just shot them, and they cleared the system through the first 5 seconds, they counted as autonomous balls. And a lot of teams didn't know that. A lot of the best teams didn't know that. And I would watch them play, and they would have a ball left in their robot at the end of auto, and then teleop would start, and they'd go, all right, let me go pick up more balls. No, shoot that ball. It's worth more. It's still worth more. Shoot it. And then end game. Some games, usually end game is some sort of climb, right? You pick yourself up off the ground or put yourself on a platform. Some games, it's where you are at the end of the match. Some games, it's 5 seconds after the match. If it's where you are at the end of the match, then you don't need to worry about your robot slowly dropping down, right? Because as long as you're up, you're good. If it's the opposite, if it's 5 seconds after the match, you want your robot to stay there. And in 2020, I watched so many robots that would climb and then sink down, and the referees would go, 4. And then it would be on the ground, it's no good. And they're like, why is that climb not counting? I don't get it. And like, oh, I didn't read the rules. Read the rules. The other thing we do on Kickoff that is really valuable is we go out on the 3rd floor, 2 floors up from here, and we tape out the field, and we play the game with humans as if the humans are robots. This is 1, super fun, and 2, super helpful. It sounds silly, but it does a couple of things. First, it helps you analyze the different robot strategies that can exist. Because when you're playing the game as a robot, you're not as tempted to, make the robot you're imagining. You want to be like, I wonder what this robot would do. I wonder what this resource team would make. Oh, this robot's doing this, okay. It's a little simpler, but how does this affect gameplay? How does it affect gameplay? Because we're doing 3-on-3, right? It's not just about what robot you built, it's about what robot your partners built, your opponents built. Figure out what other robots might do, and it also gives you a better understanding of spacing of the field. A lot of things seem further away when you watch the game animation and read the rules than they really are. Something that sticks in my brain is in 2012, so I put it here, I don't want to forget it. In 2012, the game was shooting a basketball. And there was a zone known as the key, and it looked like a basketball, like from the free throw line up, that arc. And you were protected as long as any part of your bumper was in that zone. If anyone hit you, it would be a penalty. And I thought to myself when we saw the game, and we all thought, that's a great place to shoot from, but it's a little far. We shouldn't do that. And we shot from up close, right up against the goal. And then we're building our robot, and we have the field set up, and I'm standing on the key, and I'm looking at the goal, and I'm like, this is so close. What did we do? Why didn't we shoot from here? The worst part is you have to start in auto right there. So if we just shot from there, we wouldn't even have to move. We could have just shot instead we would move and we'd go a little off and then we'd miss our shots in auto. And the whole season I was just like, oh God, why did we not tape out the field? And then we started taping out the field the next year because of that mistake. So I actually have a video of us doing this back in 2018 to show you guys. Here, let me fast forward a bit.
And then when it marks the screen, gives us square down. Now, A behind the line. 3, 2, 1, go!
And anything works as a game piece. We have cardboard boxes. Those are the goals, those totes. And we realized a bunch of things, like, oh, it's actually kind of helpful to score behind your back. It's kind of helpful to be able to rapidly pick up things. And that's me, like, oh, because I was, for the rest of the day, I'm like, oh, you have to be able to pick up in the rest of the season. You have to be able to pick up and score on opposite ends because of this. Like, oh, look how many game pieces I'm scoring without turning around. And then this person, there's Ella. She's just taking game pieces from that pyramid and scoring them, and now she's putting them in that exchange. So we learn a lot doing this. This is a really good activity. Alright, I think you get the idea. Okay. And there's just a ton of these. Actually, Max, when we do this year, record all of them, because they're super fun to watch afterwards. Okay. Okay. Kickoff continued, because kickoff is the most important day of the year. You need to list out every way to score, and you need to list out every way to prevent your opponent from scoring. It doesn't matter if you intend to do these tasks or not. List out everything you can think of. Couple reasons. One, you might not realize it's like a thing that you should do that's like really easy that gets you points. And two, it gives you an idea of what your opponents might do, or your partners might do, and what you think lots of partners will do, or lots of opponents will do. And then I encourage you to not knock out ideas as you do this for things that are possible because someone else told you it's illegal. That's something that will happen very often on kickoff. Someone who, and you probably can think of someone on your team who can act this way, they act super confident about everything, and you like know most of the time that they're wrong, right? And they'll be like, that's illegal, you can't do that. Don't believe them. Don't believe it. Look it up yourself. Sometimes it's vague. Use the Q&A. There was this season, 2010, and in that game, there were soccer balls that you had to score in goals, and there was a return for the balls. So when you scored a ball, it would come back onto the field. And there was this team, 469, their robot, they would go up to that return, and they would spread out like these cool railings, and the ball would fall in, and they could score. So it was an infinite loop of points. And they were awesome, and they were the best team in the world. And on kickoff that year, a friend of mine, Flynn, said, this is the thing, we should do this, and then someone said, that's illegal. The ball has to hit the ground. He called it, his last name was Zager, he called them Zager bombs, and we called it that for years afterwards. We still reference it. And the team did it, and we thought it's illegal. We probably shouldn't have done it because it was really hard, but still we ruled it out because someone said it was illegal. And I always think about that. You have to read the rules yourself. You have to prove to yourself that it's illegal. Don't take anyone's word for it. Come up with some different styles of robots that you might see. You know, think about the teams you've faced in the past, the teams you've seen at competition, and figure out what is the competition going to look like at the regional level. How many of certain robots are you going to see? This is especially helpful for when you're deciding limitations on your robot. In 2020, there was a height limitation that you could place on yourself, right? What was the height limitation you could place on yourself in the 2020 game? Anyone help me out? The height limitation you could place on yourself. Kano? Yeah, being able to go into the trench or not, right? A lot of teams decided to go under that trench. We decided not to. And part of the reason was we thought a lot of teams would do that. And as more teams do it, it becomes less useful to be able to do it. And we'll often take that trade-off. We'll often be tall and not fit under thing because that really constricts your robot to be short like that. But if you think everyone's going to be tall and no one's going to do that, then it has more value. So evaluating at your competitions what you expect the other robots to look like, to be like, helps. And then doing the same thing for championship, doing the same thing for whatever your goals are, where you want, the heights you want to reach as a team, what might that look like, and what might our robot look like to fit into our goals. This is an important thing to keep in mind. Whenever there are full field cycles, so Last year we had full field cycles. You pick up game pieces, you go to the human player, you come back and you shoot. That's a full field cycle. Full field cycle. Whenever there are full field cycles, average teams do about 2-ish cycles a match. That's on average what teams do. And this has been proven through statistical analysis by people smarter than me. And then competitive teams, teams that will end up as alliance captains, teams that will be first picks for the 3 through 8 alliances, they usually do 3 to 4 cycles. The elite teams in the world do about 8. The best teams in the world do about 8. Now, as the field cycles get shorter, right, the distance gets shorter, these cycle times go up. I think about 2019, the distance from your human player station to your goal was really small. So that reduced the cycle. But it doesn't, if it's a half field cycle, it doesn't reduce the time by 2. It doesn't double the number of cycles you do. It doesn't double the number of game pieces you score, because most teams, the place where they lose time is not in the moving back and forth. Where do you think most teams lose time when they're scoring a cycle? It's not in moving back and forth. Max? Intaking and outtaking, right? Picking up the game piece and scoring. So often we see a team, they're super fast. They go to the goal. They're just sitting there, right? They're trying, they drive away, they don't have it. They come back, now they got it. And they zip back. Now they're trying to score. They missed. All right. Let's try to pick it up again or whatever. So that's where the time is lost. So these numbers, they don't scale that way. Usually, the most, I think, was 2019, like teams were doing, the best teams were doing like 12, 13 cycles a match, and then the very best team in the world would do like 16, and they were just crazy good. Okay, you should also analyze the autonomous period and try to design your robot functionality around making autonomous easier. A lot of inexperienced students don't like to do this. They look at the teleoperated, the active part of the match, and they say, how do we design a robot around being the most successful in teleop? But the fact is, in most of these games, the points are weighted heavily towards the autonomous period. There's a multiplier, there's an associated ranking point. The best teams at the competition always dominate autonomous. It gets to the point where you go to a competition and you know, okay, that's going to be the first alliance, that's going to be the second alliance because their autonomous works well together. Sorry, that's going to be the first ranked team, that's going to be the first pick because their autonomous works well together. They all do the additional autonomous. And it doesn't even matter what they do in teleop. They have autonomous and endgame, and it's already game over because it's so many points. So a big decision that you need to make early on in the season is, will you pick up and score on opposite sides of your robot? This is very game dependent. In 2020, it made a lot of sense, right? Because you could start pointed at the goal, score your 3 game pieces, and then go backwards and pick up more game pieces without turning around. Other games, it doesn't make as much sense. I think 2019, it didn't make a whole lot of sense because the goal was like at angles. So I would see teams who would pick up and score on opposite sides, and they would pick up from the human player station. They go like this, and they turn. Like, just do this. It's the same angle. It's the same turn. You just complicated your robot for no reason. A lot of people think that it's difficult to drive a robot that picks up and scores on opposite sides. Sam, is this difficult? Miles, go away. Sam, is it difficult? It's not difficult. And I always hear every time I suggest this, this game really makes sense to pick up and score on opposite sides. Oh, but it's hard to drive. And then I need to be to the driver. Like, come on. Tell them it's easy. Tell them it's easy. And if they hesitate even a little bit, everyone just revolts. The 2018 was the year where I really wanted to do this, and we didn't. And it still haunts me. I'm like, how could I convince them better? It's not difficult to drive, but you really have to look at the game and see where it makes sense. Auto is really the place where it's influenced, but it's also teleop that matters as well because, in 2020, you score, and then your human player station would be back there, or the rendezvous would be back there. All the balls were back there, so you score, then you go pick up. You don't have to turn around. It makes your cycle time faster. And like I said before, in most games, auto is crazy overpowered. Very, very weighted for the score. Okay. Last thing you need to do on kickoff is you need to make a priority list. This is not a priority list of robot mechanisms that you will have. This is a priority list of robot functions. There are many different approaches to making a priority list. Teams do it differently. I like grouping and then ranking within the groups. That's generally what we stick to. But we change year over year depending on what the students prefer and how they want to organize it and how they think. The list should be made after you finish your game analysis, not before. Because you want to understand the game. You want to understand what the value is of all of these tasks. You must make this list before you start to think about mechanisms. I know, this is difficult because you see the game and you want to think about mechanisms, how you're going to do all of the things. But no, you first need to figure out if it makes sense to do them. And this is really difficult. Because you see the game piece or you see that task and you go, man, I have a cool idea of how I want to do that. And I want this. I'm a student on this team. It's my senior year. I'm going to build this suction cup. And then we built the suction cup and it was awesome. But, and then we should have built, the suction cup was great. I love that suction cup. As you prototype though, you may find that you misestimated how difficult some tasks were, right? So, this often happens in climbing, especially because it's hard to evaluate that without doing a test. So as you're doing these tests, you might figure out, oh, this task was actually way easier than I thought it was. Let me bump it up my priority list, or this task is impossible. We should not be doing this. And then you move it down your priority list. So this is kind of a living list. This is what our priority list looked like in 2020. We grouped it into musts, wants, stretches. So it would be a stretch for us to get that, and we will not do this. Won't. You don't have to put every task here, but sometimes you know yourself as a team. There's some stuff you need to put in that won't section. Otherwise, it's going to creep back. And a lot of time we'll put in our won't section, and it doesn't really matter. People still try to push for it, and it's really hard because you want to do the thing. So always first on the priority list is drive, but I like to think of item 0 as bumpers, because you can't play without bumpers, and a lot of teams like to do those last minute. Cough 694, 2019, we were doing our bumpers at the competition. One-piece bumpers next year. All right. First, we put drive, then we said acquire power cells off the ground. Anyone think they know why we put acquire power cells off the ground before scoring them? Yes.
You can't score them enough.
Right. How are you going to score them if you have? You actually start with 3, so it's a little something you can do, but still not great. You want to pick them up off the ground. And we put a lot of our resources and our best people on our intake for that reason. And I think we built one of our best intakes in 2020 because of how high we prioritized it and how the students on the team prioritized that task. And then, going down the line, high goal in the outer port showing that we're not focused on inner port accuracy just yet. High goal 5 balls, scoring them rapidly. Solo climb and bounce, scoring 3 balls high in auto. All musts. Right? You don't even need to move if you build your robot right to score those 3 balls in auto. And that influenced our scoring positions, right? Our robot was designed to be able to score from that starting line. So even if the drivetrain broke, we could still score those 3 balls. Once, score 6 power cells into the high goal in auto. We got that later in the season because it was a lower priority. Inner port accuracy, we focused in on that later. We actually never really got as accurate as we wanted to. We never were able to put in that time. Rotation to control, position control. It was a want, so it was last minute. We kind of added it on. It didn't quite work because it was a lower priority. And then stretches, 8-ball autos, bar balancing mechanisms. We did work on both of those things. And then won'ts, low goal, fit under the trench, 8-ball auto, under the trench, and buddy climb mechanisms. It's important to make this priority list and be realistic about what your team can and can't do. Okay? The more things you move to this side of the list, the better your robot will be at doing the stuff on this side of the list. Alright? A lot of people have denial about this. They think, well, it's just one more thing. We'll add it to the robot. And you guys will do your stuff, I'll do mine. What's the problem? The problem is there's one robot, and we all got to put the stuff on, and there's still these pesky programmers who need to make the things work, and these drivers who need to practice using it. They're not magic, they need to practice. Okay. Prototyping. Now that you know what you want to do, what you want your robot to do, you can start thinking about mechanisms. You can start thinking about how you want to do these tasks you've decided you want your robot to do. Don't rule out crazy ideas. It's going to be tempting to do this, especially if there's this freshman right here, and he's saying to put chainsaws on the robot. That one, don't do, okay? And, you got to kind of know how to discern, because you can't have You can't prototype everything, but let people talk out their ideas. It might take you down a good path. In 2019, and this is like the best example ever of this, someone said suction cups to climb, and I'm pretty sure they were half kidding. And then someone else went, wait, explore that thought. Let's talk about it. 2 days later, we had a prototype of a suction cup, and I'm going, oh man, this is crazy. And the whole season, like, this is not, I can't believe this is crazy. This is working. How is this going to work? And it worked, and it was awesome. And it helped us be valuable to partners because we could fit onto that bar, onto that, the hab, onto that platform, and other robots can fit on with us. And other teams didn't have that ability. Jerry, did you have a question? It was awesome. It was awesome. Although, fun story about the suction cup, we were testing on a wood platform, and the platform that they had at, like, the competition was, like this, I forget the name of the material. They always have it. Stevie, do you remember the name of the material? Yeah, whatever the plastic was on the hab. Either way, it had little grooves in it. And I was like talking to First, trying to figure out what the exact material is. They didn't even have a part number for me. It was so infuriating because I just wanted to get this thing. So what I did was, we were competing week 2. I was volunteering in competition week 1. I came with a backpack full of suction cups. And I just started, I was like to the FTA, I'm like, you know, after the matches are over, can I just put some suction cups on there? And the worst part, First emailed me back and was like, because I was telling them what we were going to do, what we were trying to do, and they said, there's inconsistencies and these things get scuffed, so it's a bad idea to rely on these things. Out of spite, I'm like, oh, we're going to make this work. Thank you for giving me this spite. So I showed up at the competition, I'm like, oh, this one. And then I went and I called everyone, like, I was calling West Coast. I was getting suction cups from all over so that we could have spares. It was a fun time. It was a stressful time. And then by the next week, we had a working climber. But it wasn't super easy. This is important when you're prototyping. You are not looking for the best design. You are looking for the right design. What's right for another team might not be right for you. This really stuck out to me in the 2020 season. We ended up doing a V-shaped funnel, and we did one that was kind of different from other teams. It was only powered on one side, but the students who prototyped it understood it well, and they understood the dimensions of it, and they understood how to make it work, and that's the design we went with. And there were students on the team who wanted to do a spin dexter, right? So we saw a lot of those, right? Spinning, spiral thing feeds into the shooter. And that was a great design. And for a lot of teams, it was the right design. And for a lot of those teams, it was way faster than what we built. But when we tried that prototype, we failed. It wasn't working. We didn't understand it well. And we made the decision to go with that V-shaped funnel. And I firmly believe that was the right decision because the students who designed it understood it. And because they understood it, they were able to execute it. Okay? If we had gone with that spin dexter and we've gone down this path before where we picked a design that we knew was better, that we didn't fully understand, when we do that, those designs are not successful. Because it's not enough to just know the concept. You have to understand the design. You have to understand the nuances of it. You see these elite teams and their great mechanisms. It's not as simple as that's a great concept. It works right away. They tweak it. They play with it. They prototype it. They iterate it. They are on version 17 of that mechanism because it's never that easy. So again, you're not looking for the best design. You're looking for the right design for your team. Prototyping is not just picking which mechanisms will work, but also it's for determining dimensions. So you're not just trying to do proof of concept. You're trying to figure out how tall your intake is going to be off of the ground. You're trying to figure out what diameter of roller you're going to use. You're trying to figure out what compression you want to put on the balls as they pass through the shooter, what speeds you want to run things at, what materials you want to use. That's where prototyping really gets good, when you can do that. So it's not about prototyping 10 different ways to do something and then picking which concept is best. It's prototyping, 10 different ways of doing something, throwing them out as quickly as you can because you realize they're not right for you, getting down to 1 or 2, and then optimizing that prototype to figure out all of the little details so that when you do your design, you have something to base it off of, and you're not just guessing numbers. Because when you're guessing numbers, you're going to build the thing, and it's not going to work. You might get lucky, but it's probably not going to work. Okay. Rollers are usually the answer when it comes to game piece acquisition. This is a tough pill to swallow, but it's really true. In FRC, whenever it comes to picking up a game piece, it's pretty much always a roller. Even when you think it's not a roller, it's usually a roller. Even when I think it's not a roller, and I always say it's rollers, even then, it's still rollers. And then, so I'll actually go into that on the next slide. But another thing for prototyping is monitor RI3D for ideas and resources. Does anyone know what RI3D is? Katie, what's RI3D? Robot in 3 days. So back in 2013, there was this group of mentors who weren't with the team but really wanted to build a robot. So they just said, okay, we're going to build a robot in 3 days after kickoff. And they live streamed it, and everyone was just glued. I was glued to the stream. Because they're prototyping everything. They're doing this brainstorming, this analysis that we're talking about. And they're trying out ideas. This is great. We can look at their ideas and adjust ours accordingly. We can take the measurements they've come up with and apply them to ours and see how they work. Now, there are a bunch of these groups. There's usually 10 of these groups that do it really well, and they build out these robots, and they're really good. In 2020, there was a team, the Everybot robot, so 118 does that, and their climber was super simple. It was just winch, runs up and down, and it was just through a flexible pole. And I looked at it, and I'm like, okay, let's do that. And ours was a little different, but we pretty much just did that. And it worked great. Our climber was awesome in 2020. It's one of my favorite mechanisms we've ever built. It's super light. It worked reliably. It broke a little bit, and the hook was kind of crazy. But it worked really well. And we just kind of looked at RE3D, understood what they were making, and applied it for us. So there's a lot of great resources out there. Use them. Where are my roller slides? Okay. I guess I'll go back to that later. All right, trade-offs. Jack of all trades is the master of none. Common saying in FRC, don't take it too far, because if you read the rest of that quote, it's Jack of all trades is the master of none, but is still better than the master of one, right? It's better, but it is true that you don't want to do everything, especially because you have partners. You don't need to do everything to be really good. There are fantastic robots. A lot of times, the best robots in the world will not do everything. You don't need to do it all. You can't and shouldn't do everything. This goes back to understanding your limits as a team. What you are and aren't capable of, or what you are and aren't, more importantly, ready for. Because we are under a time crunch. Yes, with unlimited time, we could build any robot. But we're under a time crunch to build these things, and we need to build them reliably. Every additional task that you decide to do will come at the cost of other mechanisms, or worse, programming and practice time. These matches, remember, are won and lost in autonomous. If you don't give your programmers time to get the autonomous routines working, you could have the best mechanisms in the world. It's not really going to matter. If you have a great, funnel and shooter, but you haven't given your software team enough time to get them to work right, it doesn't really matter. So you have to leave these people the time to do their work. And always remember that you have partners. Don't rely on them for too much, but you can rely on them for certain things, right? Going back to that thing I mentioned about the trench. I was not going into the season, and we were not going into the season expecting that every match we played, we were paired with a robot that would go into the trench. But we were expecting that in the elimination rounds, we'd be able to play with at least one team that could go into the trench, and the spacing of the field would work for us, right? Now, we weren't relying on our partners to do everything. We weren't relying on our partners to score all the balls. We were going to do a lot of that, right? But we could rely on our partners to do the control panel. But some teams took this a little too far, and then no one had the control panel mechanism, so we're like, all right, let's take a motor and a roller and slap it on our robot, and we'll be able to do it. Cool. All right. And this goes to, again, being realistic about your team's limits. Swerve, turrets, and adjustable hoods are not the answer to your problems. Okay, a lot of people think, okay, our team needs to take that next step. Swerve time, or turret time, right? These things don't really solve the problems. Now, if your robot works reliably every match, if you're going out there and your robot never breaks and your autonomous routine always works and you've kind of reached the cap of what your robots are capable of, then yeah, it's time to take that next step. But for most teams, for the majority of FRC teams, they make their robots more complicated than they should be, and they shouldn't. And they don't work. They break half the time, right? 694, our biggest issue is not that we can't move sideways. Our biggest issue is that our electronics unplug half the time, right? Whenever we lose a match, it's usually we flipped over or something unplugged, right? It's not because we couldn't move sideways. So, but, yeah, I mean, we still want to build a swerve, though. We built one. I paid for it. And I still want to see it work. But, you know, the swerve has gotten a lot easier, in my defense. Swerve has gotten way easier because they sell those costumes. Sometimes you're right, though. Sometimes you're right to not, sometimes you're right to keep going on something, right? So you have to make decisions on what trade-offs to make, what things not to do. Especially as the season progresses, you have to decide what things not to do and what things to do. And sometimes you'll be alone. And the rest of your team will tell you, we are not doing that. And sometimes you really have to accept that and let it go. And this is tough. But sometimes you're right, and you keep going with it. I think back to two examples. In 2011, there was a mini-bot. Who was around in 2011? Anybody in the room? Oh, G was there. Anyone else? Oh, God. Was anyone not alive in 2011? No, we're good. Okay. Right? Nobody? Okay. In 2011, one of the tasks was to deploy a mini-bot onto a pole, and it was a race to get to the top. And we built this truly terrible mini-bot. Real bad. And then we built another iteration of that truly terrible mini-bot. Then on Chief Delphi, there was this person who wasn't associated with the team, and he built a super simple, super fast mini-bot. And he showed it on Chief Delphi. And I went, we should build that. And it ended up by the end of the season, everyone had built that mini-bot. Because it was just the fastest one, and it became just not about how fast you can make the mini-bot, but how fast you could get it onto the pole. And then teams would do cool things where they would have like a ramp so that their mini-bot could accelerate. It was awesome. I love that task. But the team said, we shouldn't do that. But it was me and a student. I was a college student at the time, and there was a student on the team who really wanted to do it. And I said to him, all right, let's just do it. We'll just do it. We'll do it off to the side, and if it comes to nothing, it comes to nothing. And I remember late night, we were using AOL Instant Messenger. Okay, I don't know does anyone know what AOL Instant Messenger is? Okay, thanks. Shout out to you. So we were on AIM, and we were analyzing pixel by pixel the picture of that mini-bot to figure out the size of every little detail on that. And he made it and recreated it. And we went to our next competition, and the team took the mini-bots that they built, and they tried in the practice matches to get on the pole, and it went on there 0 times. And then I went, me and the student, his name was Ariel, we went and we're like, okay, 2 bolts, and this is on. Alright? We put it on there, and then we went out there the first time, and then the whole competition, it just worked. It was great. So sometimes you can push that. Sometimes. But usually no. The only time you can really push is if you can do it off the side without sacrificing anything else. Because we didn't get in anyone's way. We didn't stop the other mini-bot from happening. We weren't trying things on the mini-bot deployment to get ours to work right. We looked at the one that was being made and we thought, how can we put ours on there? And that's why it worked. When you're making these trade-offs, it can be really difficult. These discussions can be really hard. I have this video from that presentation I mentioned earlier that I'm going to show you guys, where Karthik talks about how to make these decisions. Let's just watch it together.
So, one of the things on a first team is, I've never thought of the engineering design process or any problem-solving process as a democratic process.
By the way, he's Canadian. You can tell.
That means it is not about what the majority does. It's about establishing consensus. And so, if you were a team and you come up with a priority list, hopefully you've achieved consensus by going through that process. You cannot please all the people all the time. Some people are going to have different opinions, and that's okay. One of the most important things on any first team is leadership. That includes adult leadership and student leadership. And the leaders on your team need to be the people who are respected the most and who can help drive the consensus and who can help rally the team when consensus has been achieved. And it happens a lot where the team will be working towards objectives and end of the season is coming and you have to make a decision. And leadership will make a hard decision. And they'll say, we are abandoning priorities number 5 and 6. We need to focus on 3 and 4 right now. 1 and 2 are done. good job, but we need to focus on 3 and 4. And the students who may have been in charge of 5 and 6 are going to be incredibly disappointed. It's totally understandable. They're passionate. They love this stuff. They've been working on it for days. This is their concept. A lot of people ask me what the biggest takeaway coolest thing that 11, 14 students learn that other students don't. I will say that 11, 14 students are the best at throwing away good ideas for better ideas. And if you could see the junkyard of prototypes or junkyard of robot subsystems over the years that have been thrown away because we decided to go in another direction, it is, I mean,
all right, I'm just going to cut it off here. So the point is, it's really difficult. You're trying to get to the finish line. You're going to a competition, and then all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, we're not going to be able to finish this robot with all the things as we intended. And you have to scrap something. And that's tough to tell a student, we can't do this. Especially if you're the captain of your department or the leader of your team, whatever the organizational thing is, and you have to say, maybe to yourself, I can't do this mechanism. Or say to a student who you respect and you love what they've been working on, they've been working hard, and tell them, we can't put this on the robot. That's really tough. And students struggle with that. But it's a decision that needs to be made, unfortunately, as you go through the season. So you have to be able to discern what things should and shouldn't go on the robot at that point in the season, and what things you have to let go. And then push for that, especially if you're a leader of the team. And this doesn't just go for engineering. This also goes for software. What systems, what automation are you not going to be able to have because you don't have the time for it? And on software, we make priority lists for autonomous routines. We say, this is the first routine, we're going to do the second one. We just go down the list as far as we can. That's why we make those priority lists, so we can make those decisions, okay? This analysis that I've been talking about here is absolutely essential. Because when you get into those tough situations, it will help you make those decisions. It'll help you justify the decisions you're making. Okay? All right. Let's see what time it is. Oh, I'm doing great on time. All right, I think I'll go here and then we'll take a break. Mechanism tips. So, 2 things. First of all, the simplest solution is most likely the right one. Not always, but usually. And 2, the unavoidable price of reliability is simplicity. The less mechanisms you have, the less complicated your mechanism is, the more likely it is to not fail. You can go a little extreme with this and go too simple. We did that back in 2015. Our robot was so simple that it never, ever broke. It didn't break one time. Naveed, were you on the team in 2015? Gene, you were there, right? We never broke. It was you know how good it is to walk back into the pit after a match and be like, it's fine, just sit back. It's a delight. Instead of going, oh God, this is broken, repair that. Bring the tower down. And then someone get hurt. It's the worst. True. But our 2015 robot was very simple. It was a drivetrain and it was a lift. Now we probably should have made it a little bit more complicated than that because it would have been able to play the game better. But we kind of got a feeling for what was too simple and what was too complicated. We always went too complicated before that. But our 2015 robot, we learned a lot from that thing because it was so simple. And if your robot's simple and you do it really fast, you have time to iterate and make it better. Okay, first mechanism tip. Rollers are usually the answer, and like I said it before, even when you think they aren't. 3 examples. 2014 season, that one over here. The game was to pick up these aerobics balls and score them in a goal. Now, everyone knew rollers were the best way to pick them off the ground, right? And then the task was, how are you going to score them? Some teams did arms. We had a roller, brought it onto a catapult, and then we launched the ball. This team built a shooter. They used a roller to launch the ball. It's kind of hard to see, but right here, I don't know if you guys see my cursor. Right here, there's a shooter, there's a flywheel. This robot was the best in the world. They brought the ball up into the shooter and went shoot it. It was so simple. There's like 3 rollers and that's it. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, rollers are always the answer. It's crazy. And then the 2017 season, this year, our robot that year, we had like a chute, we had flaps, we had pushers. It was so annoyingly complicated, it broke so much. And then there were teams like 340 who just had like rollers on a like pneumatic claw, and they were just better than us at it. And it was so easy, and we could do that. We could have done that in like a week. It's so simple. Figure out the way to do rollers. 2019, this is the biggest example, because I literally sat there and stared at that hatch panel and went, how do you do this with rollers? For like 2 straight days, I sat there with it in front of me and was like, how can we do this with rollers? And we kind of came up with a way that wasn't great, and it was just for picking up off the ground. It didn't really work. And then I saw this. 973 came out with the hatch panel mechanism that you see right here, and it's just 2 rollers. They run against each other, and they go to the middle of the hatch panel and pick it up. And they posted that, and then everyone copied them because it was so simple. It was so light. Rollers were the answer, yet again. If you're making a grabber to pick up a game piece, if you're making a mechanism that's coming up to a game piece and you're doing this, you've probably gone down the wrong path. Who knows, who can tell me why it's so much better to have a roller to pick up a game piece than to come up to it and grab it? Why do you think it's so much better to have a roller to go through a game piece than to pick it up like that? Yes? Requires less aiming, but you still have to line yourself up, right, to go out there. Why else? Straight to the point. What do you mean? Yeah, so you can you can make a wide intake too, right? Yes? Say it again? You have to stop. If you're stopping, you're losing time. Your cycles are getting longer because you have to stop to grab, and then you miss, and then it goes that way. You want to drive through the game piece, and it's in your robot. We have trouble with this sometimes because we'll drive through the game piece, and the robot will end up on top of the game piece. So you have to make a good intake that never fails. But if you do that, you achieve 2 things. 1, you don't have to stop. And 2, instead of holding on to it, the game piece, and someone being able to knock it out, it's in you. You know, you own it. We like to say, touch it, own it. It's a common saying amongst FRC teams. Touch it, own it. You touch that game piece, now it's yours. Period. No one can hit you and knock it out. It's yours. Okay. They are often a great design choice for endgame as well, but you really have to look for it. I think of 2020, balance assisters, right? Moving along the bar. A bunch of teams did that. And then 2019, you could roll yourself onto, a lot of teams had stilts with rollers on them and they rolled onto the climbing bar. When placing a game piece, so a lot of times they're called pick and place games, where you pick up a game piece and you have to place them somewhere. There, rollers aren't always perfect because rollers are great for rapidly picking something up and rapidly spitting it out. So, shooting balls in the high goal, rollers, A+, right? Placing a hatch panel, actually rollers were great for that. Let me think of a better example. Placing a power cube neatly on the scale, right? So they're not just everywhere. If you roll, you're going to knock over these stacks that you made of power cubes, right? It depends on the game. So a lot of teams, what they'll do is they'll make a rolling intake that does this. So they can roll to pick up and then place. This was really popular in 2018. This was really popular with the inner tube games. For pick and place games, grabbers can be nice for depositing game pieces. Build within your limits, and when all else is equal, build what you've designed, prototyped, or built in the past or in the off season. This upcoming season, right? I have in my mind, I know what the students on this team have designed. I know what you guys have experienced building. If I see that we need to go up, right? I know that Kano over here designed a lift in the off season. So I'm going to go, hey, can we do a lift for this? Right? It'd be a good idea. Kano understands those, right? As opposed to doing a 4-bar linkage or something else that our students aren't experienced with. So before the season starts, take stock of that. What do you have experience building? What do you understand? Because you're going to do that stuff a little bit better because you have that experience. And then the last thing before we take a little break is KISS. Does anyone know what that means? It's also a band, yes. Rock and roll. All right. What does that mean? Miles. What'd you say? What'd you call me? Yes. Yes, that's what that means. I didn't say it. You said it. Yes. Keep it simple. Whenever possible, make your robot simple. The simpler it is, the more reliable it'll be, the easier it'll be to execute everything, okay? This is an acronym to live by. This will help your team. Whenever possible, keep it simple. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll come back at 4:10 and do the second half of the presentation. If you're going to a different presentation, thank you for coming. All right, we'll be back at 4:10. Okay, let's get started, yeah? Okay, so welcome back for part 2. Part 2 is going to be a little bit more focused on strategy and competition. So let me go here first, finishing up on just our build season, right? Build tips. So the number one thing you can do to make the building of your robot happen faster is to design your robot well, to get as much of it in CAD as possible. Design your robot fully and thoroughly, and I mean thoroughly. Bolts, rivets, because you'll design the thing and then you build the thing and you're like, oh my god, this thing hits a bolt. And now I have to move everything because nothing fits anymore because I made the clearance like that and I have a bolt head in my way. And now you're spending 2-3 days of your build season dealing with this one little bolt because you didn't put it in your design. Here are the CAD models of our mechanisms from the 2020 season. If you look through, you can see which ones have a high level of detail and which ones do not. And if you do this, you'll probably be pretty good at predicting which of them broke a lot, which of them took a longer time to build. So, which do you think was our 2 best mechanisms that were super reliable based on the detail you see here? Hopefully non-694 people can help me out here. What do you think the most successful one was? Which one has the most detail of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mechanisms? Anyone? Anyone help me out? All right, I'll open up to 694 people. Yes? Shooter, look at all the details. There's rivets, there's bolts. This thing never failed. This thing was a beast because the student who designed it put in hours and hours to make it perfect. And when he built it, it came together so fast because he knew where everything went. The drivetrain, also lots of detail. We had very few issues with the drivetrain. But there was a critical mistake that was made. The belt lengths weren't right. We just missed it. It happens anyway. Even if you do details, it happens. So we had to put in crazy tensioners. And if you actually listen to our robot drive, it squeaks because there are these tensioners that rub against the belt and rub against the chassis when we move. The thing with the least detail was this guy right here. If you look closely, there is a motor floating in free space right here. When we put that motor on the robot, we had to pick just some random spot to put it. Connor, how much of your off season was spent repairing this thing?
I would say like 80 to 90% of the repairs was just that.
Because it was just under-designed. I mean, in the defense of the student who designed it, she had like 50 bajillion things on her plate, not related to this, but related to robotics, so it was difficult. But that's why that mechanism had so many issues. The more time and effort you put into the design phase, the less time and effort you will put into the build. And if you can build your robot super fast, you can get it to software, and you can get it to the drivers, okay? Designing, like being really thorough on every piece of it is going to lead to such a successful build part of your season. Okay. Design with modularity and repairs in mind. When I say modularity, I mean 2 things. One, being able to remove a part that breaks and swap in a spare really quickly, right? Being able to access the things that you expect to break most often. But also, being able to remove mechanisms for better mechanisms. Being able to easily remove a shooter for a better one. Being able to easily remove an intake for a better one. And keeping that in mind when you're designing. Because most of your mechanisms, you're going to make more than once. And especially since we have no bag anymore. We're going to have the full competition season to iterate. If you can take an intake off and put another one on easily, and you kept that in mind as you were designing your robot, it's going to be way easier to iterate. Last thing, your robot is not finished until the very last match it plays at the very last off-season event. This idea that robots are done week 4, week 5, yeah, kind of. You want to get them moving, but you're constantly trying to improve. You need to be constantly looking critically at every mechanism and saying, how can I make that mechanism better? Whether it's software or hardware, your robot is never finished. Okay. Autonomous and driver practice. This takes up a lot of time. Most teams, they like to push this. Since this is at the end, when the other stuff takes longer, when prototyping takes longer, when designing takes longer, when build takes longer, you're still going to go to a competition with a robot. Even if it doesn't move, you're still going to go to a competition with a robot. But this is often what gets sacrificed. When you push those things, this is what goes away. You need to leave yourself time to do the autonomous. You need to leave yourself time to do the practice. Everyone always says this, right? How do you do it? Well, you have to stick to your schedule, and you have to cut mechanisms when you're falling behind. Okay? A lot of teams will think to themselves, okay, I'm in week 5. The robot hasn't moved yet. I still have this mechanism I want to add. I want to add forks to the robot. It's the problem we ran into in 2019. I want to add forks to the robot. I still have time. I still have 2 weeks left in build season. No, you don't. It's time to give the robot to the software guys. Give the robot away. Get rid of that mechanism. Finish it so that they can get to works. That's when the trade-offs come into play. Not week 7. Not when you have to go to the competition, but before, when you have to give the robot to the people who need to work on it. During this time when software is doing their autonomous work and drivers are practicing, that's when you want to iterate, to change mechanisms, and that's when you want to build spares. Okay? And also, honestly, take a little breather because you're probably exhausted from weeks of designing and building. And then when you are practicing and the autonomous stuff is happening, the robot's going to break a lot. So you need to always have people ready to make repairs and to make repairs quickly. And this can be a good time to iterate. So, shooter broke. Okay, time to fix it. This is a major repair. We have a new intake. All right, slap it on. Or we have a control panel mechanism that we've been working off to the side because we haven't decided to give it up yet, but it might not end up on the robot. All right, shooter's being repaired. Slap it on. Okay? And then driving, there's this great manual that we use, the Team 2168 made. I have it up here. It's kind of crazy in some places, like they have their drivers run miles together, which I don't do, but maybe I should because I need to get some of this off. But yeah, they have really good drills, and all you need for this is a drivetrain. You don't need it to be the drivetrain from your year. You can practice without your robot for the season, right? These next few weeks, I'm going to be practicing with our driver. He's going to take an old robot, and we're going to be running these drills. There's a bunch of them here. This is a great resource. You can find it by just Googling FRC 2168 drive manual. Also, these will be posted, so you can just pull this here. I've downloaded it onto my computer in case it ever comes off their website. But there's a bunch of awesome drills for them to do, and these are just common FRC maneuvers that you do on the field, and they're great to practice. Okay? And they're also really fun to practice, honestly. Okay. Competition. Practice creates confidence. Confidence empowers you. If you go to a competition, a regional competition or a district event, you can usually figure out who's going to win that event on that day. Because they're the ones who are out there. Their robot already works, and they're not out there trying to figure out, okay, what about a robot doesn't work. They're not out there just trying to connect to the field. They're out there tuning to the goals. They're out there measuring the distances from that ball sit on the field. They're out there making sure that their robot not only works, but works on the field. I hear it all the time. A team will go, it worked so well at home. We got on the field, and it didn't work at first. And we got to our last match, and it finally worked, but teams couldn't see it. It was too late. Because they weren't out there during practice matches. At these competitions, if you get inspected really early, you can go on the field and you can play as many practice matches as you like. Our goal is always to play in practice match 1. We usually come short of that goal. We end up practice match 2 or 3, but I still counted it as a success. Teams that play 6 to 10 practice matches will almost always make limbs at a minimum. Teams that win competitions play 6 to 10 practice matches. If you are an alliance captain of the winning alliance, or especially the number 1 alliance, you're usually in those practice matches. Use practice day to tune to the field and get your drivers confident. It's not for finishing your robot or updating the Rio. I wish Sam was still here because I was going to roast him. I guess he's next door. Is he presenting right now, Miles? No? Oh, he just left me. He knew I was going to roast him. Because we went to a competition, an off-season event, and we showed up, and he hadn't updated the Rio. And I'm like, what do we do? Why are we in the school? What are we doing? Why is the Rio not updated? And then we spent like 3 hours at the start of the competition because this Rio was broken. I was losing my mind. I'm like, this is something we do back home. But again, that's why you go to all-season events, to learn those lessons, right? So take care of whatever you can at home. The competition is for competing, for practicing. Do that stuff that you can do at home. Okay, now let's get into some scouting stuff. All right, this is really the stuff that I love the most. So pit scouting. When you show up to the competition on practice day, all the teams are in their pits. Their robots are there. They're working on their robots. This is a great opportunity to learn what robots are at your competition, to understand the field, to get an idea of what teams intend to do with their robots. So this is an opportunity to ask teams questions, like what do you see yourself doing in autonomous? What do you see yourself doing in teleop? How much does your robot weigh? Which can be useful for like last year with the bar balancing, right? You want to know how much robots weigh. You don't want to have to ask teams every time you go on the field. You want to just have a record of it. You want to ask as few questions as possible. The more questions you ask, the less likely that data is to be accurate. This is just something that I've found to be true over the years. The more questions you ask, the less likely stuff is to be accurate. And this applies to like all of scouting. The more things you scout, the less accurate the scouting becomes. And then you should scout practice matches too. You can usually dedicate less people to scouting practice matches because there are less robots on the field. There's usually like 2 to 4 robots on the field during practice matches. And you can use this info for your early qualification matches. You don't really want to lean too heavily on it. Like if a team scores 4 balls in a practice match, doesn't mean they're not capable of scoring 10 in an actual match. They're just trying stuff out because it doesn't count. But if a team is capable of scoring 10 balls in a practice match, they're capable of scoring 10 balls in a qualification match, and now you know that. Okay, and then also scout. Once you get to the competition, it's really hard to improve your robot. It's almost impossible to make any sort of significant robot changes. Like, you have the auto that you have. You're not going to suddenly have a better auto. You might have a worse auto by the end of the competition because you couldn't tune it to the field. And the same goes with your mechanisms. They're not going to get better. They're probably going to break down. So you want to just repair them. Scouting is the best way to make significant leaps at competition, to get an edge over your opponents, right? Because you can have the information that leads you to running the best possible strategy for the alliance that you have, and you can beat an alliance that's stronger than you because they're not doing that work. And then if you get to be an alliance captain, you get to pick your alliance, and you can pick it well because you understand the field. You understand these robots. I'm always amazed at how bad scouting is at competitions and how bad picking is. Like, especially at the New York City Regional and at Champs, the picking is just crazy bad. Like teams, it's like, I don't know what they're watching. I remember in 2016, we were in the Curie division, and we ended up being the 8th alliance captain. And I was watching the picks. Jerry, you were there. Jerry, what happened? Do you remember?
The 2 best teams were not picked until we got to them. And we were 8th picked, so we got the 3 best robots on the field.
No, we weren't. We weren't one of the 3 best robots on the field. But we got to be captains, so we could choose them. It was crazy. I was just watching as the 2 teams at the top of our pick list weren't getting picked down the line. And then because we were the 8th seed, it's the snake draft, so we got to pick them both. I wish there was a camera on me during this. I was like, I can't believe that. That was weird. That's another weird one. Wait, we might get one of these teams. We're going to get one of these teams. We're going to get both of these teams? This is crazy. And then we ended up winning the division because we had the 2 best robots in the division on our alliance. It's every year. It's every year. The picking is so bad because teams that get to champs, two things happen. One, they like to pick teams they're familiar with, right? They're not gonna, one of the teams we picked was from Israel. They're like, oh, they're Israeli. We're not going to be able to speak to them, which is just nuts because they spoke English. And then the other thing is, it's like the big lights turn on, right? You're at the championship, and teams are like, okay, all right, who are we going to pick? Who's the next available team on the rankings? Oh, don't look at the rankings. The rankings don't matter. Pick the best team on your list. Make a pick list. Okay, scouting. Have fun with it and make it fun. You don't want to force people on your team to scout because they're not going to scout well. You want to encourage them to scout. So we had e-scouting for our off-season events, and I said I'm going to give a pizza party, which I'm still going to do, by the way. Who do I owe a pizza party to in here? All right, it's coming. Don't worry. I'm still going to send out a poll. So I said, if you e-scout, you're going to get a pizza party, right? It's not going to cost us that much money. It's going to be fun for them, and then they get to e-scout. They're not doing it alone. You know, give them a little carrot for carrot and stick. No stick. Not be like, you must scout or else you leave the team, right? If I can get my scouts to be excited about scouting, right? If we can get our scouts to be excited about scouting, they're going to scout better. If they're sitting there and they're being forced to scout, they're going to barely watch. Okay, and a lot of teams fall into this trap. They get bad data because they're forcing their scouts to scout. There's a strong possibility that scouting is going to be virtual in 2022 because there is a strong possibility they're going to limit the number of students that get to attend. This is still to be determined. Put yourself in a good situation with this. Prepare yourself for this because we're probably not going to know until almost right away, and it'll probably be region dependent. For example, we're right now registered for 3 events. We're going to New York City, which I could see them limiting it, right? We're going to an event in Tennessee, which I expect to be just like, yeah, whatever, just bring whoever you want because that's the political climate, whatever. So it's going to be different depending on each event. So you should follow the restrictions in each area and be ready for that eventuality. Okay. The other thing about scouting is fancy scouting, as I like to call it, versus bare bones scouting. At competitions, when we're in person, we like to do paper scouting. There are a lot of teams that like to do, like they make their own apps, right? And I'm not a fan of this because, one, their apps usually fail, like early in the competition, because it's an app and you have to like beta and gamma. I don't know all the letters. Beta, gamma. How many tests do? They do an alpha test, right? Then beta. You have to do all that stuff. And then they don't have any scouting data for half the regional. And what was the point of all that work? We now have no data. We just use pieces of paper and we take pictures of them, right? E-scouting, we just use a spreadsheet, Google Sheet. I have all this stuff actually up here for you guys. So this is what our pit scouting sheet looks like from the 2020 season. Really simple, bare bones questions, little images so we can draw like what teams' autonomous routines do, basic questions, and this will be available afterwards if anyone wants to see this. It's just broken up into autonomous, teleop, endgame, any additional comments, and then basic robot facts. Okay. Oh, my headphone's going to die soon. Sorry, Max. I'll switch. I have another one. Okay. We're good. Hold on. Give me one sec, guys. It's going to speed. Okay. Where was I? So this is our pit scouting sheet. This is our scouting sheet. This is the one we ran in 2020. We just print out many copies of this, one per team, and just tallies, and then space underneath for comments. A lot of times teams fall into the trap of scouting too much. We will do this, especially at early regionals. We'll have like 1 or 2 things that should be on there that are on there. I think we actually did a pretty good job of this in 2020. This sheet was excellent. What will often happen is someone will want to put the team will want to put something on there that I am extremely confident should not be on there, and I'll offer to eat a scouting sheet. So I think it was, on this one, I wanted to combine the low goal and high goal scoring into one, and teams could just indicate, like you can indicate low goal or high goal, and I said I'd eat a scouting sheet if a team ever did that, and I remain hungry for scouting sheets. because that never happened. And yeah, you should pare down whenever possible. Remove things from this list. This balance one I also felt like we should have removed because there's nothing you can do with that information. There's nothing that changes. So try to think of everything, like make your scouting sheet and then think about what you can remove. Because again, the less things you scout, the more accurate your data is going to be. Okay, and then we just have comments on the bottom for what happened in that match. And we maintain this sheet. For e-scouting, what we do is we have been maintaining a doc, and it's just like a digital version of that. We're not making an app or anything. It's just a spreadsheet where you physically enter data, and then there's just a visualization of it here, just like averages of each, and then you can look at each team. These are really helpful to be able to look at each team. A lot of programs will, like, you can just see the averages, right? And averages aren't all you want to see. You want to look at individual data points. So let's say a team played and their scoring was, they scored 0 game pieces 4 times and they scored 10, right? Their average is going to be 2 game pieces a match. But that doesn't tell the full story, right? They're capable of scoring 10. So if I'm in a situation where I need to pick a high volatility team because I'm a lower seed, that might be a great pick for me. So I like to look at all the individual data points and not just averages when you're analyzing teams. So yes, you want to look at averages, but also there aren't that many matches, there aren't that many data points. You can look at all of the individual ones. So it's good to maintain both averages and data points. Okay, so that's the scouting sheet. Let me jump back here. I'm going to do it on time. Okay, perfect. Okay, competition tips. Get inspected immediately. When you arrive at a competition, usually the inspectors aren't ready right away, and it's the best feeling when you go to an inspector and you say we're ready to get inspected, and they go we're not ready for you yet. You feel if I could bottle that feeling, I would sell it. So if you get inspected immediately, full inspection, you can play as many practice matches as you want. That's the advantage of it. All right. So to play the practice matches you're scheduled for, you need to do like basic inspection, like weight. I think it's weight and bumpers. But if you want to play every single practice match possible, all you need to do is get fully inspected. So we always plan around that. We try to get inspected before practice matches start. Other competition tips: maintain a pre-match checklist. Maintain a pre-match checklist. The things that you want to make sure your robot does properly before you get on the field. This is extremely important at early competitions when your robot will break down more often. You're going to find the thing that was going to break on the field in the pit and get to repair it. So here's a copy of our 2020 pre-match checklist. You can see it. We just go down the line. Systems check. Upstream, so 5 balls going through the whole system. Running all of the mechanism. Running the intake. Climber up and down. Run the woof, which is our control panel mechanism. Wheel of Fortune. I don't know why it's 2 O's, though. That doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't it be just... I'm going to change it. Never have. Alright. Drivetrain. We often skip this one. It drives me crazy. Because at some point, it hasn't happened yet, but I'll often say, like, did we run a full systems check? And I'll say yes. And I'll say, did we run the drivetrain? And they'll say no. And I'm kind of rooting for it to fail once. So I can just be like, I told you to run the drivetrain. Yeah, we gotta get better at that. Okay, putting the robot back in starting configuration, compressing, putting on a new battery, zip tying the battery in place, putting the strap on. We will often, you see here, there are names next to each task. Those are the students who are in charge of making sure that happens. Wiping. Wiping, oh god. I've been talking for an hour and a half. Wiping. So we would wipe down some of our mechanisms. We got lazy with this in the off season, to be honest. Also, we had less people. Checking limelight angle. Bumpers, wing nuts must be tight. You can see here that they weren't tight in the match, and a bolt got loose. That's why that was added with such gusto. Nuts and bolts check. Nuts and bolts check. Can someone from 694 explain what this means, nuts and bolts check? What do you do? Someone who's done one before. Connor, you've done a nuts and bolts check. Yeah, what does that mean?
Basically just going around the robot and like touching every single nut and bolt that you can reach, and then making sure that it's tight and if it's not, and it's like a piece that doesn't need to be loose that needs to be.
Yeah, because some stuff's supposed to be loose. But yeah, we do these checks when we have downtime. You'll catch a lot of breaks by doing a nuts and bolts check before you go on the field. Especially if, like, you got everything ready, the robot's ready, it's just sitting there. I'm a nervous person. I don't know if you guys can tell. So I'll just go, we're not doing anything. Nuts and bolts check, alright. And then you see every student and me just going like this. I want to get gold stars next year. That way if you like find a loose bolt, I can give you a gold star or something. What do you think? You like that idea? Gold stars? Okay, cool. Maybe I'll do that. Alright, check for leaks, electronics check. You can tell we often have issues with electronics unplugging because these are all the things we check. Okay, so that's our pre-match checklist. Every few years, we'll get lazy with this. And then we start to break a lot. And then we'll ask the question, are we doing a pre-match checklist? Are we sticking to it? Are we being true to it? And the answer is usually like, it's a no, but it's one of these. It's like, no, right? And then we jump back into it, and then we get better about it again. This is, like, I can't tell you how helpful this is for mitigating robot failures. We do this consistently, and we break almost never when we do this consistently. Okay. More competition tips. Coach up your partners. Assume they will make every penalty in the book, and never take anyone's word for things like rule understanding. You have to be like paranoid at competitions. Because like, everyone's out to get you. Everyone's lying about what their robot does. Everyone's lying about how often it's broken. And they always tell you they understand when they don't. Right? So you'll say, you know what this rule is, right? And they'll go, yeah. So you don't phrase your question that way. You gotta just say like what the rule is. There's this quote, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. So something I hear very often from other mentors that I'm talking to during competition is like, oh, we had a really bad schedule. Or, our partners made this mistake. Well, why did your partners make this mistake? Did you make sure that they knew that mistake? Did you make sure they knew that was a penalty? Right? You're either coaching it, you're either educating them on it, or you're allowing it to happen. If you're in the know about the rules, if you on kickoff read the rules so thoroughly that you understand them as well as a referee, you can't expect your partners to do that because that's kind of crazy, right? You should spend the time to talk to your partners and talk to their drivers and make sure they understand all the rules. Make sure they understand all the strategies. Another thing we do that's really helpful and that any team can do is we record our matches field side. This is another thing we get lazy about. And when we get lazy, it really stinks. Because this is useful for two things. One, drive team. They can watch the match from the, like, really up close and see what mistakes they were making. And two, when things break, we can get a better understanding of why they broke and how they broke. Why did the auto fail? Why did the climber fail? What happened? You get that close-up view and you can see, oh, the rope snapped right here. Or, oh, we drove on top of that ball. Or, oh, our partner nicked us as we were turning, and that's why our auto messed up. We shouldn't change anything. Because oftentimes you won't realize that and you'll make a change that you shouldn't have. Practice field in the pit. This is another layer of crazy that we do. Is, one, our pit floor is always a carpet, so that if we need to tune encoders or a gyro or anything, we can do it on the carpet that mirrors the field. Two, if there's a goal we can have in the pit, we will have it. In 2019, we even had we had a whole hab. We had the whole climbing platform in our pit. Like we created a rolly one so that we could show teams how we double with them because we had the suction cup, right, that I mentioned earlier. So the suction cup fit with another team. So we would roll the thing over to another team's pit, put it down, take our sample suction cup, slap it on, put their robot on, and show the driver like this is how it works. Or even better, we would put the suction cup on and have them climb on with us. It was really great, and teams thought we were crazy. Teams were borrowing our thing because you don't want to wait for the practice. It always takes forever. And actually, the pit next to ours was empty, so we just kind of manifest destiny into it and put the hab in there, and like we had a whole crew of people working in there. It was really awesome. Don't rely on the competition practice field. I can't stress that enough. Don't rely on the competition practice field. The window to use it is 10 minutes. So small. A lot of the time, I hope there's no one in the room who does this, but a lot of the time they pick the biggest jerk volunteer they have and put them on the practice field. I don't know why this is a thing. I don't get it. Your 10 minutes will be up. There'll be no one waiting to use the practice field, and they'll force you off. They'll force you to get off, and then they're like, okay, there's no one here. You can come back on. Don't let that influence you, right? You can only control what you can control. You can't control other people, so prepare as if, it's always going to be the worst case scenario. Last thing about competition is pre-scout events, especially the championship. Teams will have played matches before. Learn how those teams play. This is especially important if you're the head of a strategy department. If you're a driver, so you can understand the teams you're playing. Right? I'm going to say that again because my driver was. If you're a driver, so you can understand the teams you're playing against, right? So you can, okay, that team's really easy to push sideways, or that team's really good at defense. I better watch out for them. Or that team's really not good at defense. I won't let them kind of distract me from what I'm trying to do. So pre-scout events, watch videos. I personally, because again, I'm a crazy person, I will watch just all the teams going and like all of their matches going into a competition. But I usually do like their most recent competition and then like more heavy on limbs. And then I'll create a document for myself. All right, those are my competition tips. All right, that's it. We're under time. Questions? Does anyone have questions about anything from this presentation? Comments? Open it up. Yes. Oh, I just like doing, so, let me go back here. This quote I just had for a long time ago. Oh, this one. I wanted a quote about practicing and why it's important, so I went to Google, and I typed in famous practice quotes, and then I just scrolled. And actually, you go through the Google images because you have those posters, right? They're like, and then I was like, oh, Simone Biles. I love Simone Biles. Oh, that's a really good one. Okay, cool. And then a lot of them I actually, Karthik in his presentation, he has some of these quotes in there too. The main one that I stole from there was this first one, which I think is really great. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm, because, in this program it's so important to be enthusiastic. Yeah. Good. All right. Let's see what's my favorite quote. I like this one a lot. I don't know if this one boosts morale. Talks about failure. This one's good, yeah. I feel like this one I actually found this time. I looked up reading rules, famous quotes. I had to dig deep. I was on like page, and I was forever scroll, so I was like deep on it. All right. Any other questions? Yeah. Let's do it. You first. Yeah. Sorry? Okay, so which team are you on? Rambots. What year are you? Yeah, so, first off, set your goals for the year, right? What you want to get out of it more than anything, because, you're a sophomore, so it's going to be hard for you to really take leadership right away, but I encourage you to do so. This year is going to be tough for all of us, right? There's a lot we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So, dive in, ask questions from your mentors, from your teachers, any experienced members, and don't attach too much to winning. Like this year, I'm not focused as much on, we are focused on winning, right? But I want to make sure our students are learning as much as possible. You want to come out of this year being like, man, I know a lot. I have 2 years left after this year. I'm setting myself up to be an awesome member of this team, an important member of this team. So, learn as much as you can, ask as many questions as you can. Go on, if you don't have a Chief Delphi account yet, chiefdelphi.com is an awesome resource, which is just like a forum for first. FRC Reddit, not useful, just a bunch of memes. I assume the FRC Discord is similar. Is anyone here on the FRC Discord? Really? Alright, join the FRC Discord. I'm old, so I feel like I don't belong. Am I right, Jerry, though, that I don't belong?
There's plenty of mentors
Right, but that didn't answer my question. That I don't know about that. Okay. But yeah, use those resources, and if you ever have questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them. Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, I was gonna ask a very similar question of like post-COVID, how you recommend teams scale back a little bit because of the loss of knowledge and of not being able to compete for 2 years.
It's tough. It's definitely tough, and we've been struggling with it for sure. And luckily, we have been able to meet a lot through Zoom. But simple. Build a simple robot. Just build a simple robot. It's going to make everything easier so that you can focus on details, right? Instead of focusing on figuring out how to build an elaborate mechanism, you can build a simple mechanism, design it well, so you learn design skills, build it well, so you learn to build skills and different ways to construct something, iterate it well, so you learn iteration, program, so you can be better at all of the little things, right? So that's the number one piece of advice. Our 2015 season that I mentioned earlier when we built that crazy simple robot, we probably could have built a better robot, but it was very similar to this year where our students didn't have the expertise they did. A bunch of our mentors left. It was really mostly just me, and then maybe a couple of others. I mean, we had Gene, who was our sophomore mentor too. But from the mechanical side, it was mostly just me, and we just didn't know a lot. And we said, we're going to build a simple robot. We're going to make it work really well. And we learned a lot through that. And the next year, we were able to make a more complicated robot because we understood those little details. So more than anything, being simple.
How do you handle the disappointment of saying, no, we're not going to climb this year, go for high goals, or things like that?
I don't think so it also depends how your team runs. I don't think it's my place to say that to students. I think it's my place to show them why that's the right way. And if they get that, great. And if they don't, that's okay, right? A lot of the times I'll express thoughts. And sometimes I'm wrong, but a lot of times I'll be right. And it'll be okay if students go another way. And if they go another way, I'll support it. But yeah, I think this is the time right now to inspire. That's why I wanted a bunch of my students to come to this, because I wanted to show them these lessons of how to make these decisions, how to make trade-offs, how to sacrifice functionality. So you got to teach them it. You can't tell them. I don't think you can tell them we're not climbing this year. I think they have to say we're not climbing this year. Although I think it depends on the game. Sometimes you have to climb.
Yeah.
That's also the thing. It's like sometimes you have to climb.
Well, there's always more than you can do.
Right. I mean, the 2020 year you had to climb. Like we didn't get to see it played through, but to matter, you kind of had to climb. But you didn't have to score high. You didn't have to go into the trench. There's other trade-offs you can make. Any other questions? Yes.
When you venture breakages in a robot, what are some most common examples of it, and how should they be prevented?
That's a good question. What are the most common failures? I think it depends on the robot construction. For us, our most common failures are electrical. But that's also because we kind of put a lot of effort into making sure the other things don't happen. It's like things loosening, I think, happens to a lot of teams. Like a thing falls off. If your bumper falls off, they disable you. Your match is over. That's as good as your whole robot breaking down, right? So making sure things are tight is one thing. Pre-match checklist is going to help. Each robot is going to be different. So if you can put in practice time to understand what the failure points are on your robot, you're going to do a better job of predicting what's going to fail and figuring out how to mitigate that. But I wouldn't say it's like there are general things that always break on all robots. I'd say it's more robot specific, if that makes sense. Yeah? Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Jerry?
I would recommend the competitions are really unique time and event, right? You meet other teams, and so I would say go to other teams and just talk to them about their robots. It's a really good way of learning about different designs and just seeing the different designs helps you design in the future, right? Like just knowing that a certain design can exist and do a certain has these limitations, has these capabilities, and then go into the future, knowing that these are possible. It's nice to talk to people about these things. Don't be rude, of course. And if they're busy, then don't take up too much of their time. But it's just a good thing to do.
I actually have two things I want to add to that, which is like the Blue Alliance is the BlueAlliance.com is an awesome resource for watching other teams. In 2018, our original intake and scoring mechanism was trash. Like, we literally put it in the dumpster after we took it off. That was like the image we put out on Chief Delphi. We took it off and put it in a trash can. And our students were looking for inspiration, for what to build, for what to change to. And there were a lot of different ideas out there. And a student on our team, the director of design that year, his name's Piotr. A lot of you know him. He found this team out in Washington, not Washington, D.C., Seattle. And he watched a few of their matches. And they weren't, like, the best team at that competition. I think they might have made a list. They might have not. But he saw their intake, and he saw a little detail of it that just sparked in him, like, oh, I want it to look like that. And I remember when he showed me that, I was like, okay, that robot's not very good. Why are you copying it? And then he made this thing, and it was freaking awesome. The intake he made was awesome, because he took this team, and I looked at it afterwards. I'm like, man, he really used that for inspiration. It really helped make what he decided, because he was studying that team. He was just watching random matches, just curious, because he was so enthusiastic about it. The second thing I wanted to say is in 2014, I mentioned this earlier in the part one. In 2014, we did not qualify for champs, and I went to champs anyway. I took a few days off work and I just went to champs. And I didn't volunteer. I just went to go. And I went to teams, and I looked at robots, and I talked to teams, and I went to that presentation from Karthik, and I learned so much. And ever since then, when we go to a competition, I always make a point of it to take the time to step back from the pit, to step back from whatever I'm working on. I mean, I have the luxury of Naveed over there, who can be the mentor in the pit, and I don't have to worry about anything. I go and I talk to all the teams, which is great because you get to meet a bunch of people, say hello. But I also look at the robots, and I talk to the kids, and I ask them questions. And it's a fantastic experience, but I also learn a lot every time. No matter how many years I've done this, I learn a lot talking to these teams and looking at their mechanism and looking at their robots. Because in first, I don't know how many people there are. Hundreds of thousands, maybe a million, I don't know. But everyone has a different approach. Everyone has different ideas. Everyone has different executions. And you can steal a lot of great ideas from other teams that way. All right, we still have a couple minutes. If anyone has any other questions? Anyone? Going once? Austin? You're going to ask? No, definitely not. Going twice? Natalie? Yeah, and I think it's also, these resources are useful for newer members. So the BlueAlliance.com, ChiefDelphi.com, apparently the FRC Discord. What else is useful? There are a bunch of teams that have awesome presentations online. So just like peeling through YouTube. I know that 1678 had a bunch of resource like videos that they made last year. I think Robo Sports Network has a YouTube channel. They have a bunch of great stuff on there. First Updates Now is probably the premier YouTube thing for First. They have interviews. They do Behind the Bumpers, which is like they interview teams in their pit and ask them questions about their robot, and they have a bunch of elite teams in there. And they have Behind the Glass, where they put mics on the drive team and they record them behind the glass as they drive. And I love watching those because as a drive coach, it's like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And what can I I'm constantly trying to learn. I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm constantly trying to improve. I think for drivers, those are valuable as well. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Jerry, Naveed, anything you would add? Other resources that are useful? Good? Okay, yeah. First Updates Now is really awesome. They have awesome stuff. Any other questions? Once? Twice? Sold. Okay. All right, thank you for coming.